the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing. This is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report, where we count down the top 10 topics of this past week that made us go wow.
Wow.
I'm co-founder of World of Wonder, Fenton Bailey, joined, thrilled, honored, excited to be joined by editor of the Wow Report, James St. James. And back after what feels like forever. I mean, you were back last week, but I'm still getting used to you being here. Our Chief Creative Officer, Tom Campbell. And can I just say, James, what is that fascinating, delightful pendant around your neck?
Why, it's a Duchess of Windsor cameo, of course. What else would it be?
Pourquoi?
Well, I've been on a bit of a tear lately about the Duchess of Windsor. I don't remember a couple weeks ago we talked about a book I was reading that tried to put her into a new light. And so she's a new heroine of mine again, all over again. And I got this from the Netherlands. I was on a binge at 3 o'clock in the morning.
What color plastic is it?
Oh wait, no, it's 24 karat gold and crystal, darling. But I also was going to get. There's a Duchess of Windsor doll from 1938 that was going to sell me for. It was like 800, and he was going to sell it to me for 600, and I couldn't do it. And then someone snatched it up from under me, and I'm just furious.
I think you should count your lucky stars. You're not lumbered with a giant Duchess of Windsor doll. Like
you do not know me well at all, do you?
Let's get into the countdown. What have we got at number 10, Tom?
Number 10.
You guys, I did something very non-Tom, I think. I streamed on Amazon the new musical Cinderella. And I didn't hate it. It's gotten horrible reviews. I want to talk about it. But more than anything, I was thinking, like, out of all the things I've missed, out of all the shows that I owe watching, I took time to watch Cinderella, partially because it's one time. And then the next day, in my pile of recycling, laid the answer. And I'm going to show it to you and tell you on radio. My Amazon package came wrapped in a Cinderella, Camila Cabello poster.
Genius. I love the idea of turning the box into a promotion.
All I want is for us to sell a show that ends up on a box on Amazon that my coffee grinds come in. You know what I'm saying?
You know that unless it's on Amazon, good luck getting that thing on that box, right?
That's true.
But anyway, and I've always said this, if there's a Snickers ad on TV at night, on the next day, I'm in the grocery store humming the song and buying the Snickers. I watch Cinderella. Listen, it's an hour and 52 minutes long, which is too long to tell any story. Even the story of the Bible to me can be told in a shorter amount of time. That being said, it's I forget her name already, but it's directed, written, conceived by the woman who did Pitch Perfect. She did Girl Boss on Netflix. She's very popular. I'm sorry, I can't remember her name right now. But she's not on the Amazon box. So how am I supposed to know? But Camila Cabello is Cinderella. It's an updated, it's very Pitch Perfect. It's very musical mashup. It's very anachronistic. Idina Menzel plays the evil stepmother who has a reason she's evil, because that's how things work these days. And it's more of like Cinderella is less of a lonely girl looking for love as she is like a girl boss. She designs gowns and she needs someone to finance her. James. And Pierce Brosnan plays the king. Billy Porter is the fairy godmother. And I have to say, once she goes to the ball, which is kind of halfway through, and once you kind of know they're going to hook up, I did just needle drop on the rest of the thing until the very end, which ends in a big kind of anthem of liberation called to J-Lo's "Let's Get Loud."
James,
silence.
You're bursting, James.
Well, okay. I have seen Idina Menzel sing Material Girl in this, and I've got to say that it might it's not only the worst thing to ever happen to Madonna, it might be one of the worst things to ever happen in the history of mankind. You have the Black Plague, the sack of Rome, the murder of Julius Caesar, and then you have Idina Menzel singing Material Girl. And I I don't know. I can't do it. I can't go. I don't understand because the Rodgers and Hammerstein version is so.
Oh, grow up. You're 90 years old. Young people want something new.
No. But the Brandy Whitney Houston version of it stands. No,
So she's evil. Okay, so but she's evil with a reason. What are the other differences? How else do they update the story or vary from?
Why do they update the story? Why does it need?
Why
to
not?
be updated?
I mean, it is politically correct within an inch of its life. It's cast colorblind. Everything, which is fantastic. Why not? Why shouldn't young kids of all different colors and nationalities?
That's what the Disney version did with Brandy and Whitney Houston.
Yes, but they're doing it again. It's good for that to happen. And most fairy tales and princesses and things do have kind of a bad. It's kind of a bad storyline for little girls. So making her a little more empowered. Camila Cabello is another one of those artists that's sort of everywhere and kind of almost interesting. As an old man, I say, her video that she has that looks like a telenovela, it just came out and like Valentina's in it. It's got 1 billion views.
Billy Porter plays the fairy or something. What does he do?
Billy Porter is the fairy godmother.
He's the fairy godmother, so that's different.
I've never heard the story of Cinderella before.
But they take it all. Everybody has a backstory, and that's kind of the second half is really slow in explaining. It ends up there's a princess who the sister of the handsome prince ends up taking over because she has good ideas and he wasn't meant to be king. She's going to be queen. She's going to take over the kingdom instead. So there's a lot of revisionism, which I'm fine with all that. I might have been hypnotized by my Amazon box, but I thought it was harmless. It was fun. And I think I appreciate the song Material Girl like never before, James. It's almost like Mozart or something now that I've heard reinterpreted.
James, also, you're arguing from both sides because you also like that reimagining of the Wizard of Oz. What do they call it? The Witch, the Wicked Galinda. What was that thing?
Yeah, Wicked's genius, and so is the Wiz. I mean, I'm not against reimagining things. Okay. I'm just I'm against jukebox musicals. Basically, is what I hate. I hate the idea of it, and you have this wonderful score by the Rodgers and Hammerstein. It's just one of the most brilliant things to ever hit Broadway, ever. I don't understand. I think the kid looks really cute. The prince looks adorable. He might be my way into it. Okay. I think that Camila Cabello is a little bland, and I just don't understand the reason why why they think they're reinventing the wheel when Disney reinvented that wheel, 20 years ago.
All right, we're gonna move on. Cinderella is streaming on Prime, number 9.
Number 9.
James, I am so excited to hear what you have to say about this next
item. I spent all day today rewatching Liquid Sky, which I have not seen since 1983. Liquid Sky, of course, is the seminal new wave masterpiece that is. Are you agreeing or yes? No.
I don't want to.
I don't know what it is, so help me.
Okay, it's Annie Carlisle plays two characters. She plays a man and a woman, and it's the story. It's set in the 1980s club scene, the after hours club scene of Danceteria, Berlin. It is shot like. The acting is very Warhol movie. It's very flat. It's very campy, unaffected. It tells the story of a model who is and he's a junkie. She's a model, both of them. And aliens land on the rooftop of her building. And every time she has sex with someone, the aliens, whenever they orgasm, the aliens kill that person and suck out the ecstasy from them. And so the aliens get off on sex and heroin abuse. And whenever anyone does heroin, they kill them and they take when they're peaking, whatever. That's sort of the story in a nutshell. But the outfits are so brilliant and spot on 1981 new wave. Everyone has squiggles drawn on their faces and triangles, and their hair is 10 colors going different directions, blah, blah, blah. The outfits the music is this synth clavichord that it's a synth something or other. And it is the craziest. At the time it seemed very futuristic. Now it seems so retro. The whole movie itself holds up so gorgeously. And the interesting thing, the reason why I'm doing it is because tomorrow I'm interviewing Annie Carlisle for another podcast. Sorry. for someone else.
You are interviewing her for another podcast?
Yeah.
You're like doing another podcast?
Well, I was invited to be a guest on this other podcast, and I'm going on to promote our podcast.
Oh,
That's the reason why. But
Good
at the same time, I'm going on with the idea that Annie and I are going to become best friends, and I'm going to invite her to come on and do
Well,
our
I hope
podcast.
she's not listening to this, because when you said the acting was sort of Warhol, like, it was just kind of bad, right? The acting.
No, but I think it's purposely bad. I think it's unaffected in a way that is supposed to be off-putting and not lifelike, and sort of more like a panto or something like that, where it's
that's also what they were going for with Cinderella on Amazon.
I just, it was, like I said, it was filmed at the First Danceteria, which we've talked about on our show, and it was filmed at Berlin, which was an after-hours club in the early 80s as well. And so it's a real slice of New York downtown in a way that never has been captured on film. And the thing that I'm most interested about, and I know we have to move on very quickly, so you can cut this out, but the thing that I'm most interested in is if the looks were created for the film and then history picked up on that, or whether the which came first, like the looks from the movie, or was the movie copying what was really happening downtown?
I think the movie was riffing off what was really happening downtown, but just giving it a sci-fi extra flair.
Yeah, I mean, that's just because I don't know if some of the things that people were doing, like the squiggles and stuff, were actually happening yet.
Yeah, Steve Strange in Visage was doing little squiggles on his face.
What year was that, though?
Oh, that was like 1980, 81, Fade to Gray.
Well, because this is 80, 81 too, so I don't know how much of it is were they riffing on Steve, or was Steve riffing on them?
Right, yeah, it was a sort of it was new romanticism in a futuristic package.
Yeah, it's fascinating to look at, though, and it's interesting because I thought you would go berserk over it.
I can't wait. I've never seen it since 1982 or whenever, so I am going to go rewatch it, because
I'll tell you something, because I'm watching it on Vimeo, and Vimeo does not make it easy to find. I'll tell you what, it was also on. What did we decide?
Shudder. I think it's on Shudder, right?
It is on Shudder, yeah. So maybe and watch it there. But it is. I suggest everybody watch it, because it's something to see. Yeah,
it's seminal. I'd like to also talk about that and Cafe Flesh. Do you remember Cafe Flesh?
I have never seen Cafe Flesh.
It's again slightly futuristic, independent movie.
Wait, is Mary Warnoff in that one?
I don't know, but it's set in a slightly futuristic world where people, it's sort of almost anticipating the AIDS pandemic, and that only certain people could have sex anymore. And so everyone who's sex deprived and sex starved, they go to clubs to watch people having sex. So I'll look it up, and maybe we'll talk about it next week.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I'll watch it too.
Liquid Sky is on Shudder. Okay, gonna go on to number 8.
Number 8.
Over the Labor Day weekend, went to a wedding in Connecticut of our really good friend Tony and Idris, Nolan's godparents.
Congratulations, Tony and Idris. That's fantastic.
20 years together. Tony and Idris. Yes, they finally tied the knot and got married. Tony and Idris did all the photographs in the World According to Wonder coffee table book, which is on sale in our retail store. Anyway, it was a great wedding, and because it was a Labor Day weekend, we wanted to get the very first flight back, because airports are a shit show and COVID super spreader opportunities. So what we did is we drove back that night and stayed at JFK in the TWA Terminal Hotel.
They're recently revised or revamped, right?
That's right.
Redecorated, yes.
That's right. Eero Saarinen, who's famous for designing mid-century modern furniture and buildings. He actually did the St. Louis Arch, that arch in St. Louis. He designed the TWA terminal. Howard Hughes commissioned him to do it. It was finished in 1962. It opened, at which point it was actually out of date, because Boeing had introduced much larger planes, the 707, like 4 years before it was built and opened. And then, of course, in 1970, the 747 came along. So it was always like too small. And for actually, I don't know, I guess the last 10, 15 years, it's been sitting empty. TWA Airlines, who owned it, went bankrupt. It is a most spectacular building. It's sort of very futuristic and curves, and it's like you feel you stepped into a 2001 Space Odyssey movie. You know, all the furniture is sleek and built into the walls, and the walls are all curved, and they're like decorated with these beautiful penny ceramic. It's absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, long story short, this is interesting to you, James. Andrew Ballas on who's the standard? The Chateau Marmont.
Oh, Andre Balazs.
Thank you. Andre Balazs had the right to turn it into a hotel, but for some reason the deal fell through. So finally, another development company came in, and it opened as a hotel, and it is gorgeous. And they built 2 wings on either side, which are the rooms in the hotel. But this lobby and this hotel and all the branding is just delicious. It's here's my room key.
It sounds very you, Fenton. It sounds like you were just orgasming for the aliens.
I was, and there's a rooftop pool that has views of the airport runway, so you can swim in the pool, looking at planes taking off.
I'm glad to talk to someone who's actually been there. I've seen pictures online, and it looked like the ice cream museum to me. It looked like just an Instagrammable moment. I didn't know if it was real.
That is right. It is actually a perfect Instagram installation.
Now, but LaGuardia, it's at LaGuardia, right? Is what you said?
No, it's JFK. It's JFK.
It is.
And this is the beauty of it. It's right. A few years ago, they built a whole brand new terminal, Terminal 5, right in front of the old TWA terminal, which is JetBlue's terminal. So if you're flying JetBlue, you literally wake up in the morning, walk through a tunnel, and you're at you're there.
That sounds fabulous.
It really was fabulous. In fact, I sort of want to go back and just stay in the hotel.
Right, you don't even need to go to the city anymore.
Very past its prime. I actually have flown TWA out of that terminal many, many moons ago, way past the prime.
That's a legendary thing to have done.
Thank you.
TWA back in the day was sort of the shit, wasn't it? Like in the 60s and 70s?
It was like Pan Am.
And
both of those airlines kind of were sort of bankrupted by fatal air crashes. You know, the TWA Flight 800, I believe, flying off to Paris with... Anyway, let's take a break. Blake, do you have a question?
I do. What is the most popular day for Americans for birthdays? More Americans are born on this day than any other day.
All right. Very good question. We'll have the answer right after the break. You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report on Radio Andy. Hey, I just got to tell you, RuPaul's Drag Race UK is coming soon, September 23rd, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wow Presents Plus, worldwide, excluding the UK and Canada, and then in the UK, BBC 3. So, what was the question, Blake?
What's the most popular birthday in America? More people are born on this day in America than any other day. What is it?
I'm going to say 9 months after Thanksgiving. Tom?
I'm an Aries, and all I care about is me. So I'm going to say April 12th because that's my birthday.
I'm going to go with April 12th because that's everybody having a Independence Day shopping session.
Oh, see, I think that after everyone's home for Thanksgiving, they all fuck after eating.
Well, of course, James is most right. More Americans, September is like National Birthday Month with the top 9 days being in September. September 9th, yesterday, is the most, and the least is on Christmas Day. Because more people shtup during, in the colder months. So 9 months after that.
Like in the bleak days of February, everyone's getting together to stay warm or something.
That's how I'm here because I was in July, which is, actually, no, you're right. So that's
October, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's just beginning to get cool. Maybe it's different in the UK, but my birthday is September 27th, and I have tons of friends who are right around me.
Here we are. We're counting down the top 10 things this week that made us go wow. We've reached number 7, Tom.
Number 7.
It's no secret to those of you who listen to the Wow Report that I am a bit obsessed with watching Turner Classic Movies. And when you think of Turner Classic Movies, you think of Bette Davis. You think of, The Faces. I taped in the middle of the night. They also have TCM Underground, and they had a double feature of Sandra Bernhardt's Without You, I'm Nothing.
I did it too. Yes.
The film from 1990. And then a movie I may have seen once. I may have seen it once. And it's Wigstock, the movie from 1995, which I can only imagine you guys were there. I mentioned this to Fenton briefly, and he's like, he asked, is it a good movie or not a good movie? And it was perfect for what I needed. It was like the Wikipedia of drag in 1995. Like it was such a joyous occasion. And they do capture that. Once again, I love these live events. I love seeing the crowd more than the performers almost. Just seeing who shows up and what we look like and what we wear and what our hair was like. And what
who's one of the stars.
Don't jump ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The one person who is, Lady Bunny's in it, Lady Miss Keir, RuPaul has a huge part. Jackie Beat, Alexis
Arquette and Alexis Delago.
Joey Arias. I mean, so many queens that I've heard their names, and you guys have mentioned them, and I just don't have sort of a face to go with it or a live or don't know them in their prime, and they're all there. But the person who steals the movie, who is the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my life, who is Theron Smothers.
Yes.
He's just billed as Theron. I don't know how old Theron is there. He must be like in his early 20s.
He's in his tweakage, I'll tell you what.
And he is surrounded by drag queens and beautiful trans women. And you realize in that moment, Theron Smothers, if you don't know, is the head of talent at World of Wonder. He also is a key component to RuPaul's Drag Race and dealing with the queens and RuPaul. And he lives and breathes everything, but also drag. And then you realize with such authority and authenticity. That's what I took away from that documentary. Theron is a god among men. That is the takeaway from the documentary. What do you got? Were you guys there at the Wigstock?
Yes.
In 19 when the one that became the movie. And tell me your memories as much as you can in the short time we're given.
Well, wait, you said that was 95, so that wasn't the year that Lee Bowery gave birth on stage to
Yes.
Was
yes.
it? It was.
Well,
Okay.
he'd already done it. He did do it, James, before. I think he either did it in Union Square Park or in the band shell at Tompkins Square Park. It wasn't the first time he'd done it.
Because I
I'm
remember,
absolutely sure of that. Yeah.
okay, because I remember being with him backstage and seeing this outfit and having no idea that Nicola was underneath for 5 hours before
Nicola was his wife.
Yes.
He was his performance artist, and he comes on and he's in this like it's hard to describe, but it's like kabuki. It's huge. He's this massive like statue of a person.
Yes.
And he starts to perform, and then he gets in his back, his legs go up, and out of a man-made vagina, out comes his naked painted wife,
Nicola, who's covered in blood, and she bites
Sausage
off.
links.
Yeah, she bites the cord. And
Cord.
apparently, she was strapped upside down, which was the crazy thing. So
that's what somebody said, that when they went there, like they had to wait backstage for like an hour before he go. You know how these festival things run behind?
Hours that she was upside down, strapped to the body.
Anyway,
Well, that's like birth for all of us, I guess.
yes.
Yeah.
I think it's. I can't begin to get into it. It is. I think it's eye opening. If you love Drag Race, if you're curious about drag, it's an amazing document of that time. And I think if it's not Turner Classic Movies, it might be on demand. But I think HBO Max has a lot of the Turner Classic movie.
Yes, and we'll post that scene or a link to it on the Wow Report, and we'll also put on Wow Presents Plus Wigstock, which was a 15-minute piece we made for BBC in 1991. And that has RuPaul and Lip Syncer, but Camille Paglia and all these sort of and Jose and Lewis and all these academics, John Waters and Fran Lebowitz. I mean, it's an extraordinary glittering lineup of
You have
intellectual.
single-handedly propped up Camila Cabello her whole entire
All
career.
right,
I
all right,
will
we gotta
never
move on.
forgive you for
Okay.
it. But
Oh.
Tom, I do want to just say that also the "Without You I'm Nothing," the Confessions of a Pretty Lady, is absolutely spectacular. Sandra Bernhardt is a force of nature, and I would love to chew on that with you someday because it's really fun.
Next time.
All right, let's go on. Number 6, James.
Number 6.
I have become addicted to Citizens app on it's an app on my phone, and my sister has it, okay? And I always think, and she's on it all day long, and she follows whatever crime is happening on her block in her neighborhood. And I always thought that she was absolutely crazy to do so, and that I thought that if I ever did it, I would have ADHD and would never get off of it. And
That's right. She's right.
Yeah, it's dangerous. And recently, something happened in my neighborhood that was very strange. There was a burglary that happened, and the burglar, I say in quotations because we don't really know what happened, and the burglar barricaded himself in the house and had a standoff with the police. And this was like a block away from me. And suddenly, there were 3 helicopters very low over my apartment, and they stayed there for 5 hours. And if you've ever had helicopters over your house for 5 hours, it was like, and I say this in all seriousness, it was like being in Kabul. It was like being like in the middle of a war zone.
Very upsetting.
It's very upsetting, and you can't get anything done. And everybody on our block was out in the street exchanging information about what they knew. And nobody really knew anything. And it wasn't on the news. And when it was on the news later that night, they gave it 20 seconds. A burglar barricaded himself in, and the standoff went on for 5.5 hours. So I don't belie anything. I don't believe anything, but we all got on Citizens app, all the neighbors, to try and follow it at the same time. Well, now, by God, I still don't know what happened then because it wasn't on Citizens app either, which makes me think that it was some government op.
I thought it was on. I looked it up when you texted me, and I saw 2 cars, like a car overturned right near your corner.
Yeah. Well, but the helicopters, though, weren't police helicopters or news helicopters, and they weren't black op. They were simply generic looking helicopters, which is very, very weird, right? Because that makes it seem like it's FBI or CIA or something.
James, are you implying that the burglar was Melania Trump?
I'm implying that something was going on other than a simple burglary.
Aliens have landed on your roof. It's liquid sky.
I'm thinking that it was like a sheikh, a Saudi prince, or something was being held kidnapped. Something was being tamped down by the government is what was happening. But anyway, my point is that now Citizens have, I know every time there's been a pickpocketing within 100 feet of me, I know I am aware of every knifing that's going on around the block. And it makes you not want to leave the house, frankly. Like suddenly you realize that the world is much dangerous than you knew.
No, it's a culture of fear. That's what it is. You think the world is much more dangerous thanks to Citizens app scaring the bejesus out of you.
But I was happy to be oblivious and to tootle along my way and never know that right behind me there was 2 rapists and a gunman, but now I know, and it's just terrifying.
But I get off that Citizen app. I'm on it too, because cars are always crashing at the corner of 3rd and Highland.
They are, yeah.
And it's always, I can always look on Citizen app and see the video.
And that sound that the Citizen app makes, and it does it all night long.
Turn off the notifications. Gosh, James.
Well, I can't because then I won't know.
You used to be addicted to listening to police radios, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And now this is the app version. Okay.
Right. Okay. Mean world syndrome. That's what you're suffering from, James. Number 5. I know we've talked about impeachment. I think you gave it a preview, James, and I believe it actually launched, the other night. I just wanted to talk about one thing. I was reading a review of it. I haven't seen it myself, but I was reading a review of it, and it said, oh, well, there's no sex in it. They've left all the sex out. So there's no cigar. There's no sex, and apparently there was going to be no thong snapping because one of the moments in the sort of seduction or in the relationship or the blossoming of romance was that Monica snapped her thong, or revealed her thong, I should say, not snapped it. Anyway, the writers, because Monica's a producer, executive producer,
the writers in this article I read said they left it out because they thought it would annoy her and upset her. And when Monica learned that they'd left it out, she insisted they put it in because she felt it was important. And just because she's an executive producer of it, blah, blah, blah. But it was interesting to me.
Sex the story of Monica and
well,
Bill.
That's the whole thrust, James, of this piece, because I actually think you can't take sex out of it. And in a way, it's almost wrong to say take sex out of it.
Yeah.
Not to say it was a purely sexual encounter, but that it's the way sex and love go together is one of life's great mysteries, and they do go together like peanut butter and jelly. And
it sort of makes it seem shameful on Monica's part. Like Monica's ashamed of it, and I don't think she is.
Which is why I wanted to mention two other versions of this story. One was a 1998 film called The Oral Office. Now, you won't find any reviews of it online. It's an adult film, and one of my favorite genres in porn are those where they shaving Ryan's privates, where they take sort of classic things and give them dirty titles. And The Oral Office had Monica Lewinsky, Hillary Clinton, and they were sort of getting into it every which way. And then they had Linda Tripp going down on Janet Reno, who is revealed to be a cock in a frock. So it's all kinds, every kind of wrong. But the reason I mention this is because I watched this film because I gave a lecture at the University of Santa Barbara around this time, and Constance Penley, the professor there, brought it up. And it was the same time as Shakespeare in Love. And I remember seeing Shakespeare in Love and thinking, God, what a phony piece of rubbish Shakespeare in Love is. Hollywood's always promising you sex, but it never gives you anything. And then here was this cheap, rude, lewd porn video that was actually sort of parodying Washington, parodying Hollywood movies, parodying the whole fuss that everyone got themselves worked up into about this thing. Because, I think part of the awful thing that Monica went through is that everybody just got into a complete lather about this story rather than just like, okay, it happened, let's move on, And a little tiny detail I will share is that, Brett Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court judge, he worked on the Starr Report. And I think the Starr Report, which Kenneth Starr put together as the investigation of the independent counsel, is the most disgusting, repulsive piece of shit ever. And it details in explicit detail everything that happened. But did you know that Brett Kavanaugh wanted Kenneth Starr to ask a question of Bill Clinton? That famous interview where he was deposed on. And the question he wanted asked was, if Monica Lewinsky says you ejaculated in her mouth twice, would she be lying? And I thought that really reveals the nature of Brett Kavanaugh and who this person is.
And the Republican Party, who are they need to know everything that goes on in your bedroom, and then they're going to be horrified by it.
Absolutely.
Or
and of course, let's not forget that they get up to the exact same shenanigans.
Exactly.
They're the ones always prosecuting, voting against gay rights, and then they're caught in a motel room smoking crack with a hustler. All I'm trying to say by this is, long way around to saying, I hope impeachment's great. I haven't watched it yet, but I just think without the sex, it's kind of like, it's a little weird to me.
Yeah.
So, I'm quite out of breath after that. Let's take a break. Blake, do you have a question?
I do, but I also want to say you can watch Monica in black and white on Wow Presents Plus now.
That's absolutely right. Monica in black and white. Really the first documentary putting Monica's point of view across, but where Monica is interviewed by people of her age, her students. Monica was very young when this all happened, and it's a documentary. Monica in black and white was on HBO, and yes, you can see it now on Wow Presents Plus.
And also, and not to take anything away from that, but if you ever get a chance, watch Monica's TED Talk, which is absolutely stunning in a piece that stands the test of time and is one for the ages.
Absolutely.
All right. The question is, it's a birthday question. Although he's passed away, today's his birthday. He famously told Larry King in 1985 that he quit celebrating birthdays after 30. He's a fashion designer and a director, kind of like birthday boy Tom Ford from a couple of weeks ago. And he's designed outfits for concert tours for Kylie and Madonna. Who is he?
All right, you're watching the Wow Report. You're listening to the Wow Report here on Radio Andy. We'll have the answer right after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report. I am Fenton here with Tom and James St. James and Blake. And we had a question.
Yep, it's a birthday question. Although he's passed away, today's his birthday. He told Larry King in 1985 that he quit celebrating them when he turned 30, which would have been 1963, by the way. He's a fashion designer and a director, like Tom Ford was a couple of weeks ago, birthday boy. He designed outfits for Madonna and Kylie's concert tours. Who is he?
Well, it's not like Bob Mackie. It's not.
Oh, thank God.
It's
Nope.
not Gautier. It's not. It's someone who's dead. Who's
It's not
dead?
Versace. Is it Versace? No.
It's Karl Lagerfeld.
Oh, of course.
What did Karl Lagerfeld direct?
Lots of shorts late in his life. He was like
I've
77.
never seen any of them.
Yeah, he did. He did like a Coco Chanel thing, I think, once.
All right, moving on with the countdown. Number 4, Tom.
Number 4.
Number 4 is my rest in peace moment. And I was sad to learn that this week, Willard Scott, former weatherman of the Today Show, the man who's famous for celebrating the birthdays on air with Smucker's Jelly as the sponsor of Americans who turned 100 or more, passed away at the age of 87. He didn't make it to 100. And what kind of struck me as I was doing a little research about Willard, because I have fond memories of him. He was, he was kind of, he was the original Ronald McDonald the Clown. Before that, he was Bozo the Clown. It's one of these journeymen who have done every kind of piece and bit of television. He was on radio, he was in the service, and people claim that he was exactly the same on camera he was off camera. And in fact, he
also famously did the Carmen Miranda. And that was like one of the, seeing a man in a dress was huge for middle America.
He did the weather as Carmen Miranda once. And supposedly he had anxiety. He had a lot of stage fright. He was on live television and he would do these characters and go over the top. That was his way of sort of fighting his anxiety. There was a famous, and his arrival around the time was when Today Show took over the ratings war from Good Morning America back when that was a big top thing. And, there was all the serious news. And then there was the thing of Willard. And Willard also traveled the country. He was just someone you wanted to know. There's a famous story that in the first George Bush and Barbara Bush inauguration, part of the parade, they were walking down, in D.C. And Barbara Bush stopped, let go of George Bush's hand, ran over and gave Willard Scott a kiss on the cheek. And she goes, I just love that. I just love his face. He probably was a Republican in a time when people could be Republicans. Or there was some great quote he had. He goes, I'm a Republican. I wish we had more Republican candidates like John F. Kennedy. So it's like, again, a different time when people were in the middle. He retired, I think, in 96, but he kept making appearances up until like 2005. He was with a wife for his entire life. She passed away, and then he remarried a few years later, and he widows that woman. The one scandal was Bryant Gumbel was on when he was on, and Jane Pauley. And Bryant Gumbel wrote an internal memo that got leaked, and I think 1989, that just lambasted Willard Scott, how he brought the production down, how he was just, awful and low bass and crap. And Willard on air was very like, don't worry about it. They made up. He kissed his cheek on air, but they say that behind the scenes, it devastated him, that his, coworker had made fun of him. What I'm saying is the New York Times obituary, it's a very snarky, we're better than Willard Scott kind of review. And in the comment section is everybody saying, screw you, lady. It's like he was the real deal. And he brought humanity and kindness and joy to television. And he brought, even the Carmen Miranda moments and things. There's very few Bryant Gumbel moments you can.
I was going to say, I also was maybe the beginning of the downfall of Bryant Gumbel, where people.
We got a window into how nasty he was. And I'm not one to say, because it's all just gossip, but the Matt Lauer and the morning show scandal stuff. I wonder how Bryant Gumbel would hold up to that scrutiny today? I don't know. It's a question. That's not a statement. That's nothing you can sue me about. That's just a question.
Oh, rest in power, Willard Scott. All right, number 3.
Number 3.
Steve from Blue's Clues. I don't know if you guys saw this. He made a video this week, and it really got me. I teared up multiple times watching it. He came on and said, I know I left 20 years ago. I stopped doing the show and I went to college, and I know that upset a lot of you kids, and I didn't give you a lot of time to process it. And I want to say that I've been thinking about you, and I worry about all of you, and I'm so proud of everything you've done. And people were crying on their pages on my timeline. And I sort of like what Mr. Rogers is to people our age, Tom. How the fact that he, like, this one girl on my timeline said, I had a really rough childhood, and Blue's Clues was my safe place. And the fact that he cares about me, it makes me feel like I'm worthy and I'm okay. And I was like crying with her as she was telling this story. It was very nice. And after he's ending, he said, and by the way, you look great. Whatever you're doing, you keep doing it. You look fantastic. And that was the thing that just got everybody. I didn't realize that it's a Generation Y or millennials that were Blue's Clues, I guess. And I never really watched it, but now I love Steve more than anything.
I'm right with you. I never really watched it. I knew of him, of course. It was a cultural phenomenon. Yeah. But boy, he just cuts through that video and right into your heart. And I also love, he said, he goes, I came on Friday and told you I was leaving for college, no warning. But then he goes on to say, I'm really glad I went to college. I learned a lot. It's really helped me in my life. And I just, every word, every syllable is just this.
It was Mr. Rogersian.
His delivery. Because he had that delivery in the show that was very much like talking to the TV, right? But he paused and it was that same old delivery. It was like comfort food or something. Because I thought it was slightly bizarre that he's just talking to a camera saying, you look great. He has no idea how anybody looks.
No, but being cynical and mean. Like I said, this girl who had said she had a really rough childhood, she said it doesn't matter that he's not looking directly at her. The fact that if they met, that he would, she just knows that he cares.
Unconditional love, right?
Yes. Yeah. And sadly, I think the real story was, because I was talking about to the kids at World of Wonder today. I was in the office, and the people at the front desk are all sort of that age. And I was talking to them about it, and they said that the real story was that he was losing his hair, and he felt that was wrong for the character. And so he went to the producers and said, should you replace me? And they said yes. And so he said that he wanted to go to college anyway. But it was sort of a sad thing that he was, and I don't know if he was gay or not, but he just felt that he wasn't serving the kids in the right way.
I have a feeling this isn't the last we've heard from him. This could be a comeback moment. We have to think of something right away.
A movie.
Get him on Drag Race. Get him as a judge.
Yeah. Well, actually, this is a good segue. You can watch the video on the Wow Report. And at number 2,
I
want to talk about Britney. Yes, I know the Britney news. Her dad's sort of finally giving up on the conservatorship. Great. Britney is now going to be free. And so many months ago, I might have mentioned this. I went on this podcast called Toxic, the Britney Spears story.
Oh, you're doing other podcasts, are you?
Because I felt that in the sort of the Free Britney movement was a little bit ill-informed. It wasn't necessarily in her best interests, And so I did this interview, and everything I did and said got twisted around and turned into reinforcing the Free Britney idea that she was being completely controlled by her management and exploited and all the rest of it.
Wait, you mean you were vilified for doing another podcast?
No, no, that's not what I mean. I mean, though, I went on the podcast to say that when we made the film, I Am Britney Jean, we felt that she had a great relationship with her dad, that she was really happy with her management, that yes, of course, we had to submit questions in advance for interviews, but yes, of course, we went off topic and asked other questions. Yes, of course, we couldn't film 24/7. Yes, of course, they said no to us at times and controlled access to a degree. And I was telling all these stories because it was like, you got to understand that when you make these kind of films, you have to work with a management team, and a management team is there to protect the artist.
and that they have the artist's best interests at stake. And none of that. It was all chopped out and just presented as like, I was a sad fan who really wanted to get to know Britney, and that didn't happen. Because I did make that point. And I said, the whole point was, yes, I'm a Britney fan. I wanted to make the film, but I knew that in making the film, I wasn't going to become her best friend because that wasn't why I was there. But they chopped all that out. It was like, I hoped I was going to have a connection with Britney, but that didn't happen. So
you were on the other end of a bad edit, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Blame the edit.
Being the one in control of the bad edit.
So this is thank you very much, Tess Parker and Barbara Gray, who are the hosts of Toxic, the Britney podcast. And I got a very aggrieved note from one of Britney's team saying that I had,
broken.
Yes, and I wrote her a letter of apology, and I apologize to her now, and I did some good things. I talked about the blackout period, and I said, because I said, when we made the documentary, we thought we would talk about the blackout period in the documentary. This was as Britney was getting ready to do her Vegas residency.
Yeah.
But actually, I sat down with one of her managers. I said, don't you ever talk about it? And the manager said, no, we actually never do talk about it. He said, it's not like Oprah. It's not like we all sit around talking about these things. He said it's like a family, and something terrible happens in a family and you just move on. You don't sit around talking about it, which I thought was a really brilliant, enlightening, smart answer. And I worry that I went and did the interview because I feel there's a plethora of misconceptions about what's going on with Britney out there. And in my marvelously 2 left feet, clumsy, well-intentioned, disastrous outcome way, there you go, end of sentence. That's not very grammatical, but still, at this point you're supposed to say, oh, Fenton, I'm sorry, it really wasn't as bad.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you were misunderstood like that.
I just want this whole thing to be edited out, so I don't even want to say anything.
I'm just glad that this podcast has way more of a reach than that Toxic podcast.
There you go, exactly. I just love the glee in James's eyes right now. You can see this. He's like so glad. All right.
I do understand. It is akin in my narcissistic way. I'm thinking about like when we sit around and talk. If I'm having dinner with you, we aren't going to sit around and talk about the murder of Angel.
Right.
I mean, it's not something, like you can talk about it and you can discuss it, but it's not something that every day you need to relive the traumas in your life.
Right. Exactly. It's like the family dynamic, which I think people can relate to. Anyway, let's move on. When we come back, before we go, I just want to put a little plug in. Brand new podcast about New York City nightlife in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Night Fever. Hosted by James St. James.
And Randy Barbado and Fenton Bailey.
A little bit. And Diane Brill is episode 1. And episode 2, which just launched, is Michael Musto.
And it's a real humdinger of an episode. He runs circles around me and sort of makes chop suey out of me. He's pretty fantastic. The next one is going to be Lisa Edelstein, and it airs next Monday. And it's probably the best interview I've ever done in my life, just tooting my own horn.
It's really good. I mean, you say, James, that Michael is so funny that he gave you whiplash, but you really hold your own, and you're really genius in this and in the Lisa Edelstein episode.
And this, you can chop this out, Blake, but we were doing wallpaper today, and it's funny because Diane, Lisa, Musto, and Peter Gatien are the first 4, and that all sets the table for the 80s, and then wallpaper leads us into the 90s, and he holds his own too. It's very interesting.
It's fascinating. All right, we'll be right back after the break with the number one thing this week that made us go, wow.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James St. James and Blake, and we have reached the number 1 spot. What was the number 1 thing that made us go wow this week?
Number 1.
We don't have a lot of time, and this story just escaped us last week. The news broke just as we had wrapped our thing. ABBA has released 2 new songs. The first 2 new recordings in like 100,000 years, but literally since the 70s
Are
or
they
80s.
getting along? Didn't they not get along for decades?
There's so much, but like here's and my question, which I'll pose to you at the end of my little tiny rant, is ABBA Dabba Do or ABBA Dabba Don't. They have 2 songs. They have a ballad called Don't Shut Me Down, and they have more upbeat. Don't Shut Me Down is the more upbeat one, kind of breaks into ABBA dance number. And I Still Have Faith in You, which is really slow. Now, here, the gay internet exploded. People were so grateful. They're alive. They sound that those
exactly.
sounds.
It sounds like pure ABBA from the classic years.
The pronunciation, that weird ABBA pronunciation of English is delightful. All of the tropes are there. I don't, and thank you God for ABBA. Every day I wake up and say, thank you God for ABBA. I don't think these aren't hits. These aren't hits.
I don't hear a hit either. I don't hear a top 10, top 40 hit.
Right. They sound like ABBA. They're ABBA-esque, but they're not ABBA hits, right?
They feel like ABBA don'ts. They feel like ABBA B-sides. They feel more BB than AA.
The school of ABBA. The school of ABBA.
I have a feeling that in the Philippines and Sweden and Zimbabwe, they're going to be huge hits. I don't see them being hits in America.
Well, they also just announced their digital residency at the London concert, digital avatars of them. So even if they don't sell huge, they'll still have,
they're legendary, and their work speaks for themselves. It's just, and call me a greedy bottom or whatever, lazy top is what I am. But I just wanted them to be great. I wanted them to set, to make my hair stand up on my ears. And it just came short. Maybe this will inspire them to make another one. I just want a great one. I also want a new lip sync. I want a new lip sync song. That's just.
Well, there's an album coming out, so maybe they're just holding the best ones for,
Okay. This might be the slow burn. Okay, ABBA, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt.
And I love the idea of them doing a digital tour, like sort of like Kraftwerk. It's like sort of they're there but not really there, and they're going to look good.
We are 5 years away from everything being virtual.
Yeah.
Well, it's a damn shame that the hologram theater didn't work in our building, because we could have had ABBA.
Don't give up.
Well, that's all we have time for on the WoW Report this week. Tom, thank you so much. James and James, thank you.
Darling.
And Blake, thank you too. Love you all. And
thank you, Mr. Whiskers. Who's your cat again?
This is Outdoor Kitty Cat. He just comes.
That's Outdoor Kitty Cat. Hi, Outdoor Kitty Cat.
Same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go
wow.